The colony world of Veridon 7 was a small and quiet place at the edge of known space. It had been settled 43 years ago by a group of human pioneers who wanted a simple life far away from the busy centers of the galaxy. The planet had purple forests, silver lakes, and skies that turned amber and gold at sunset. About 12,000 humans lived there now, spread across 3 small cities and dozens of farming villages. Governor Linda Marsh stood on the observation deck of the main government building in the largest city. She was 51 years old, born on this world, and had never seen Earth with her own eyes. To her, Veridon 7 was home. Its people were her family. She had dedicated her entire life to making this colony a good place to live. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. Deputy Administrator Kevin Cole rushed in, his face pale and his hands shaking as he held his data tablet. "Governor, we have a serious problem," he said. "Our outer monitoring stations have detected ships. Many ships. They are not responding to our communications." Linda felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She had heard stories about the Vexari Dominion. Everyone in the galaxy had heard those stories. The Vexari were a reptilian species that had been conquering smaller civilizations for centuries. They took what they wanted and enslaved anyone who survived their attacks. The Galactic Concord, the loose alliance of spacefaring species that was supposed to maintain peace, had done nothing to stop them. "How many ships?" Linda asked, keeping her voice steady even though fear was growing inside her. "At least 40. Maybe more. They will reach our orbit in about 12 hours. Linda closed her eyes for a moment. Veridon 7 had no military. They had a small security force with basic weapons meant for dealing with criminals, not alien warships. They had 2 old transport ships that could barely make it to orbit. There was no way they could fight back against a Vexari invasion fleet. "Send a distress signal," Linda ordered. "Broadcast it on every frequency we have. Send it to every direction. Maybe someone will hear us." Kevin nodded and hurried away. Linda turned back to the window and watched the sky grow darker as night approached. Stars began to appear, tiny points of light scattered across the blackness. Somewhere out there, Earth existed, the homeworld of humanity. She had seen pictures of its blue oceans and green continents. She had read about its history and its people. But Earth was very far away. Veridon 7 was just a small colony that most people had probably forgotten existed, in the communications center on the lower floor of the building. Technician Amy Grant worked quickly to boost the power of their distress beacon. She was 28 years old, with short brown hair and tired eyes. She had worked late shifts for years, monitoring communications and maintaining equipment. This was the most important thing she had ever done. Her colleague Danny Ortiz sat at the next console, listening to the transmissions from the approaching fleet. His face was grim as he turned to Amy. "They are broadcasting on open channels," he said. "It is a standard Vexari conquest message. They are telling us to surrender or face destruction." Amy paused her work for a moment. "Has anyone ever survived by surrendering to the Vexari?" Danny shook his head slowly. "They take the useful people as slaves. Workers, technicians, anyone with skills they need. The rest of the population." He stopped and looked away. He did not need to finish the sentence. Amy understood. She returned to her work and finished boosting the signal. The distress beacon activated, sending a powerful message out into space in all directions. It was a simple message, repeating over and over, "Human colony under attack. Vexari invasion fleet approaching. Please send help. Please." The message traveled at the speed of light, spreading outward into the galaxy. Amy watched it go on her screen, feeling a mix of hope and despair. Even if someone received it right away, even if someone decided to help, they would never arrive in time. Veridon 7 was too far from any friendly system. The Galactic Concord was too slow and too cautious. Humanity had no powerful allies among the stars. What Amy did not know was that her signal had already been detected. Over the past 20 years, Earth had secretly placed hundreds of listening posts throughout the galaxy. These small satellites floated in the darkness between stars. Invisible to normal sensors, waiting and listening for any sign that human colonies might be in danger. When the distress signal from Veridan 7 reached the nearest listening post, it was immediately relayed back to Earth through a network of hidden communication stations. The message arrived at Earth less than 1 hour after Amy sent it. Back on Veridan 7, the news of the approaching fleet spread quickly through the population. Fear gripped the colony as people tried to decide what to do. Some wanted to fight even though they knew it was hopeless. Others wanted to hide in the wilderness and hope the Vexari would not find them. Many simply sat with their families, holding each other and waiting for the end. Governor Linda Marsh made the difficult decisions that needed to be made. She ordered the 2 transport ships to be loaded with children and launched toward the nearest friendly system. It was a desperate gamble. The ships were slow and had no weapons. They would probably be intercepted before they reached safety, but at least some of them might survive. At least she had to try. She organized the evacuation of civilians into underground shelters. The colony had been built with emergency bunkers meant to protect people from natural disasters like storms and earthquakes. They would not stop orbital bombardment, but they might help some people survive the initial attack. As the hours passed and the Vexari fleet grew closer, Linda found herself standing on the roof of the government building looking up at the stars. Kevin stood beside her, along with a small group of security officers carrying weapons that seemed almost like toys compared to the firepower that was coming. "Do you think anyone heard our signal?" Kevin asked quietly. Linda thought about the question for a long moment. She thought about Earth, so far away. She thought about humanity's place in the galaxy, small and unimportant according to the older species. She thought about all the diplomatic requests for help that had been ignored over the years. "I do not know," she finally answered, "but it does not matter now. Whatever happens, we will face it together. We will not give up our home without a fight, even if that fight is hopeless." Kevin nodded. There was nothing else to say. Above them, first Vexari ships became visible to the naked eye, dark shapes blocking out the stars as they took up positions in orbit around the planet. The invasion was about to begin. 12,000 human beings waited below, preparing to defend their home with whatever they had. None of them knew that help was already on the way. None of them knew that across the vast darkness of space, engines were igniting and ships were launching. None of them knew that Earth had heard their cry and was responding. They believed no one would come. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Deep, beneath the mountains of Colorado on Earth, Admiral Victor Hayes sat in the command center of United Earth Space Command. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face marked by decades of military service. The room around him was filled with screens and consoles, each one showing information about human ships scattered across the galaxy. The distress call from Veridan 7 had arrived 17 minutes ago. In that short time, Victor had already begun the largest military operation in human history. "How many ships can we send within 1 hour?" he asked, his voice calm but urgent. Commander Patricia Long checked her console and turned to face him. "The 1st through 5th battle groups are fully ready, Admiral. That gives us 47 major warships and over 200 support vessels. The 6th and 7th groups can launch within 3 hours if we need them." Victor nodded slowly, thinking about what this moment meant. For 40 years, humanity had hidden its true strength from the galaxy. The Galactic Concord believed that Earth had perhaps 30 small warships, barely enough to protect their own solar system. They had no idea what humanity had really been building. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden shipyards had been working day and night for decades. Around Neptune, massive orbital facilities constructed warships that dwarfed anything the Concord had ever seen. On the Moon, underground factories produced weapons and equipment using technology that Earth had secretly developed. When humans first made contact with alien species, they had been treated as children. The older civilizations had looked down on them, dismissing them as primitive newcomers who would never amount to anything important. The Galactic Concord had accepted humanity as a minor member, giving them no voice in important decisions and no protection against aggressive species like the Vexari. Earth had learned from this treatment. Humans had studied history, both their own and the history of the galaxy. They had seen what happened to weak civilizations. They had understood that the only way to survive was to become strong, and the only way to become strong was to do it in secret. So while human diplomats smiled politely at Concord meetings and accepted their low status without complaint, human scientists and engineers worked in hidden facilities. They studied alien technology and improved upon it. They developed new weapons, new shields, new engines that were faster and more powerful than anything else in the galaxy, and they waited. Admiral called out Lieutenant Gary Bishop from the communications station. The fleet commanders are ready on secure channels. Victor stood up from his chair and straightened his uniform. This was the moment everything would change. After today, there would be no more hiding. The galaxy would see what humanity was truly capable of. Put them through, he ordered. The main screen changed to show the faces of 5 officers, each one commanding a battle group from their flagship somewhere in space. Victor knew all of them personally. He had trained some of them himself over the years. "You've all received the briefing about Veridon 7, Victor said. A human colony is about to be attacked by a Vexery invasion fleet. 12,000 of our people are going to die unless we do something. I am authorizing Operation Homecoming. We are going to reveal our full military capabilities to the galaxy." Commander Nathan Scott, who led the 3rd Battle Group, leaned forward with a serious expression. "Admiral, once we do this, there is no going back. Every species in the Concord will know what we have been hiding all these years. They might see us as a threat. I understand the risks, Commander. But those are our people on Veridon 7, human beings who believe they have been abandoned by their home world. We are not going to let them die just because we want to keep our secrets a little longer." The commanders looked at each other through the video connection. One by one, they nodded their agreement. Victor felt a sense of pride fill his chest. This was what humanity could accomplish when they worked together for a common purpose. He activated the ship-wide communication system, connecting him to every vessel in the fleet. Thousands of officers and crew members heard his voice at the same moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Set course for Veridon 7. Maximum speed. We are bringing our people home." Across the solar system and beyond, engines came to life. Ships that had been hiding in the shadows of asteroids and moons emerged into open space. The Armada began to move, hundreds of vessels falling into formation and accelerating toward the edge of human territory. On the bridge of the flagship Unity, Captain Samuel Drake watched the stars stretch into long lines as the ship entered hyperspace. He was 45 years old and had spent his entire adult life in the military, training for a battle that he sometimes wondered would ever come. Now it was finally happening. "How long until we reach Veridon 7? He asked. Lieutenant Maria Santos, his navigation officer, checked her calculations carefully. 7 hours, Captain. We will arrive before the Vexery can complete their attack." Samuel allowed himself a small smile. The Vexery had no idea what was coming toward them. Neither did any other species in the galaxy. For 40 years, humanity had pretended to be weak and unimportant. Today they would show everyone the truth. He walked to the front of the bridge, looked out at the swirling blue tunnel of hyperspace around them. Somewhere ahead, 12,000 humans waited in fear, believing that no one was coming to save them. They had sent their distress signal expecting nothing but silence in return, Samuel thought. About his own family back on Earth, he thought about his daughter, who was studying to become a doctor. He thought about his parents, who had grown up during the early years of contact with alien species. He thought about all the generations of humans who had built this civilization, who had worked and struggled and hoped for a better future. Those people on Veridon 7 were not strangers. They were family. They were connected by blood and history and a shared identity that went back thousands of years. And humanity did not abandon its family. "Captain," called out the communications officer, "we are receiving updates from the other battle groups. All ships are on schedule. The full Armada will arrive at Veridon 7 within minutes of each other." Samuel nodded. "Good. Tell them to prepare for combat. We do not know exactly what the Vexery will do when they see us, but I expect they will fight." "Yes, Captain." Samuel returned to his command chair and sat down. The waiting was the hardest part. 7 hours of travel through hyperspace with nothing to do but think about what was coming. But he had trained for this. His crew had trained for this. The entire fleet had trained for this moment for decades. When they arrived at Veridon 7, they would show the galaxy what happened when someone threatened human lives. They would demonstrate that Earth never forgot its children, no matter how far away they were. And they would make sure that no species ever again made the mistake of thinking that. Humanity was weak. The Armada flew on through the darkness between stars, carrying with it the hopes and determination of an entire civilization. The people of Veridon 7 did not know it yet, but their prayers had been answered. Help was coming, Governor. Linda Marsh had done everything she could to prepare for the end. The underground shelters were filled with civilians. The 2 transport ships carrying children had launched hours ago, flying toward distant stars with desperate hope. The remaining population waited in darkness, listening to the silence and praying for a miracle that none of them truly expected. The Viserys fleet had taken up orbital positions 2 hours ago. 43 warships now circled the planet, their weapons pointed down at the cities below. The fleet commander, a massive reptilian creature called Overlord Krex, had broadcast a final demand for surrender. Linda had refused, knowing that it would make no difference. The Vexery would take what they wanted either way. Now, she stood on the roof of the government building, looking up at the alien ships that blocked out the stars. Deputy Administrator Kevin Cole stood beside her, his face pale in the dim light. A small group of security officers waited nearby, holding weapons that seemed ridiculous compared to the firepower above them. "Perhaps we should go to the shelters," Kevin suggested quietly. "There is nothing more we can do here." Linda shook her head. "I want to see it. Whatever happens, I want to face it with my eyes open." Kevin did not argue. He understood. They both knew that the shelters would not save anyone if the Vexery decided to destroy the colony from orbit. Being underground would only delay death by a few seconds. Above them, the lead Vexery warship began to glow with a strange light. It was charging its main weapons, preparing to begin the bombardment. Linda took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She thought about her parents, who had been among the original settlers of this world. She thought about her husband, who had died 3 years ago. She thought about all the people she had tried to protect, and how she had failed them in the end. Then she heard Kevin gasp, and her eyes flew open. Something was happening in the sky. A tear had appeared in the fabric of space itself, a swirling vortex of blue and white energy that grew larger with every passing second. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. A wound in reality that defied everything Linda understood about the universe. Ships began to emerge from the vortex. The first ship was enormous, larger than any of the Vexery vessels. Its hull gleamed silver and gray, covered with weapons and sensor arrays. Behind it came another ship, equally massive. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 50. They poured out of the hyperspace rift in perfect formation, spreading across the sky like a wave of steel. Linda could not breathe. She could not move. She could only watch as more and more ships appeared, filling the space above her planet with an armada that seemed to have no end. Kevin's data tablet beeped frantically as it tried to identify the new arrivals. His hands were shaking so badly that he almost dropped it. When he finally read the information on the screen, tears began to stream down his face. "Governor," he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. "They are human. They are all human ships." Linda looked at him, unable to process what he was saying. "That is impossible. Earth does not have ships like these. Humanity does not have a fleet like this. The computer is certain. Human identification codes. Human communication frequencies. Human ship designs." Kevin laughed, a sound that was half joy and half disbelief. "Earth came. They heard us, and they came." On the bridge of the Unity, Captain Samuel Drake studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Vexery fleet consisted of 43 warships, which would have been overwhelming force against any normal target. But Earth had brought 237 vessels, and every single one of them was more advanced than anything the Vexery possessed. "Open a channel to the Vexery flagship," Samuel ordered. "All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." The communications officer worked her console. "Channel is open, Captain." Samuel stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. He made sure his uniform was straight and his expression was calm. This moment would be recorded and studied by every species in the galaxy. He wanted to make the right impression. Vexry Fleet, this is Captain Samuel Drake of the United Earth Space Command vessel Unity. You are currently in orbit around a human colony world. You have exactly 60 seconds to power down your weapons and retreat to the edge of this system. If you do not obey, we will destroy you. The response came almost immediately. The main screen flickered and showed the face of Overlord Krex. He was a towering creature covered in dark green scales, with yellow eyes that burned with anger. His lipless mouth twisted into an expression of contempt. Human, you are making a serious mistake. Your species is nothing in this galaxy. You have no power, no allies, no importance. The Vexery Dominion has conquered 100 worlds. Do you truly believe your little fleet can stop us? Samuel checked the countdown on his display. 45 seconds, Overlord. Krex leaned forward, his massive clawed hands gripping the arms of his command chair. We have destroyed civilizations older than your entire species. We have enslaved billions of creatures. The Galactic Concord fears us. What makes you think you can threaten us? 30 seconds. You are bluffing. You must be bluffing. The humans we have studied are weak, primitive, barely able to travel between stars. Samuel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The humans you studied were pretending. We have been preparing for this moment for 40 years. You just made the mistake of threatening our people. 15 seconds. For a long moment, Krex stared at the human captain through the video screen. Something in Samuel's eyes, some absolute confidence, made the Overlord hesitate. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt uncertainty. You cannot possibly be serious, Krex said. But his voice had lost some of its earlier arrogance. Time is up. Samuel ended the communication and turned to his weapons officer. All ships, open fire. Target their weapon systems first, then their engines. Disable them if possible, but protect our people at all costs. The order went out across the fleet. 237 ships acknowledged and prepared to attack. On the surface of Veridon 7, Theta Marsh watched as the sky erupted into light. Beams of energy crossed the darkness, explosions blossomed among the stars, and the Vexery ships that had seemed so invincible began to break apart. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Kevin knelt beside her, buffed up both of them watching the battle above with wonder and disbelief. Earth had come, after all these years. After all the distance and silence, humanity had not forgotten them. They were not alone anymore. The opening attack from the Earth fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 237 ships fired at the same moment, their weapons targeting the Vexery formation with perfect accuracy. Beams of concentrated energy cut through alien shields as if they did not exist. Missiles carrying antimatter warheads struck hull armor and detonated with devastating force. Projectiles traveling at incredible speeds punched through plating that was supposed to be indestructible in the first 10 seconds of the battle. 8 Vexery warships were completely destroyed. Overlord Krex watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated around him. He had commanded hundreds of invasions throughout his career. He had faced enemies who fought back with everything they had, but he had never experienced anything like this. The human weapons were impossibly powerful. Their targeting systems were impossibly precise. His ships fired back with everything they had, but their weapons simply bounced off the human shields without causing any damage. All ships returned fire. Krex screamed into his communication system, "Concentrate on their lead vessels." His remaining warships turned their weapons toward the Earth fleet. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles flew across space toward the human ships. Krex watched the attack with desperate hope, praying that it would be enough to even the fight. The human shields absorbed everything. Not a single weapon made it through. The Earth ships did not even slow down. Another Vexery vessel exploded as multiple beams hit it from different angles. Then another. Then 3 more at once. The formation was falling apart as captains panicked and tried to escape the killing zone. Full retreat. Krex ordered, his voice cracking with fear. All ships, retreat immediately. But it was already too late. The Earth fleet had moved with incredible speed, surrounding the Vexery formation and cutting off any escape route. Small fighter craft poured out of the human ships by the hundreds. Fast and deadly machines that swarmed through the battlefield like angry insects. They targeted engines and weapon systems, disabling ships that tried to run. On the bridge of the Unity, Captain Samuel Drake observed the battle with grim satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The Vexery had expected an easy conquest of a defenseless colony. Instead, they had found the full might of Earth's secret military. "Status report," he ordered. Commander Patricia Long checked her displays. 15 enemy ships destroyed, 12 more disabled. The remaining vessels are trying to break through our encirclement, but our fighters are keeping them contained. "We have suffered no casualties," Samuel nodded. "Focus on disabling rather than destroying when possible. I want prisoners. I want the galaxy to see what happens when someone threatens human lives. Understood, Captain?" The battle continued for another 8 minutes, though calling it a battle was generous. It was more like a one-sided destruction. The Vexery technology, which had terrorized dozens of civilizations, was simply no match for what Earth had developed in secret. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their armor could not stop human weapons. Their ships could not outrun human pursuit. When it was over, 27 Vexery warships had been destroyed, and 16 had been disabled, including the flagship where Overlord Krex sat in stunned silence. The Earth fleet had not lost a single vessel. Not one ship had even been seriously damaged. Samuel ordered his communications officer to open a channel to the Vexery flagship. The screen showed Krex sitting in his command chair, surrounded by the wreckage of his bridge. Smoke filled the air, and emergency lights flickered overhead. The mighty Overlord who had threatened destruction just minutes ago now looked broken and defeated. "Overlord Krex," Samuel said, "your fleet has been neutralized. You and your surviving crews are now prisoners of the United Earth Space Command. You will be treated according to the laws of war, but you will answer for your crimes against human colonists and others." Krex stared at the screen with empty eyes. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible? You were supposed to be weak. You were supposed to be nothing." "We wanted you to think that," Samuel replied. "We wanted everyone to think that. It made you careless. It made you believe you could attack our people without consequences. You were wrong." The screen went dark as the connection ended. Samuel turned to his crew and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had done it. They had saved Veridon 7 and revealed humanity's true strength to the galaxy in a single decisive action. Down on the planet's surface, Governor Linda Marsh watched the debris of the Vexery fleet burn up in the atmosphere. The alien ships that had seemed so terrifying hours ago were now falling from the sky in pieces, creating streaks of fire that looked almost like shooting stars. Kevin Cole stood beside her, tears still wet on his face. The security officers had dropped their useless weapons and were embracing each other with joy and relief. Across the colony, people were emerging from the shelters. Looking up at the sky with wonder, Linda's communication device crackled with an incoming transmission. She answered it with trembling hands. "Governor Marsh, this is Captain Samuel Drake of the Unity." The voice was calm and professional, but there was warmth underneath. "The Vexery threat has been eliminated. You and your people are safe. We are sending medical teams and supplies down to you now." Linda tried to speak but found that words would not come. She took a deep breath and tried again. "Captain, I do not know how to thank you. We thought we were alone. We thought no one was coming to help us. Governor Earth never forgets its people. No matter how far away they are, no matter how long it takes, we will always come for them. That is a promise." Linda looked up at the sky, where the massive human warships now held protective positions in orbit. The stars that had seemed so cold and empty before now felt warm and welcoming. "Thank you," she finally managed to say. "Thank you for coming, far away on Earth." Admiral Victor Hayes listened to the battle reports with a rare smile on his weathered face. The command center around him was filled with celebration. Officers were cheering and embracing. Some were crying tears of joy. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy. There was no going back now. Every species in the Galactic Concord would soon know what humanity was capable of. Some would be afraid. Some would be angry. Some might even try to challenge the new reality. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, 12,000 human lives had been saved. Today, a message had been sent to every civilization in the galaxy. Today, humanity had proven that it would never abandon its own. Victor picked up his communication device, prepared to contact the Galactic Concord. It was time to introduce the galaxy to the real humanity. Things were about to change dramatically. 3 weeks after the battle at Veridon 7, the Galactic Concord called an emergency meeting. Representatives from more than 111 different species gathered in the massive assembly hall on the SESL. Neutral world of the subprime. The chamber was filled with tension as creatures of every shape and size took their seats, all of them eager to discuss what had happened. Ambassador Christina Blake represented Earth at this meeting. She was 47 years old, with sharp features and intelligent eyes that noticed everything. For years, she had played the role of a humble representative from a minor species, smiling politely while more powerful civilizations ignored her. Today, she no longer needed to pretend. The Vexery representative was the first to speak. He was a younger member of his species, since Overlord Krex, and most senior commanders were now prisoners on Earth. His scales were a lighter green than the older warriors, and his voice trembled with barely controlled anger. The human fleet attacked a lawful Vexery military operation without provocation, he declared. We demand compensation for our destroyed vessels. We demand the release of our prisoners. And we demand that Earth immediately reduce its military forces to acceptable levels. Christina rose from her seat. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward the human ambassador. Let me explain what happened at Veridon 7, she said, her voice calm and clear. The Vexery Dominion brought 43 warships to attack a peaceful human colony. They planned to kill some of our people and enslave the rest. We stopped them. We will stop anyone who threatens our citizens, anywhere in this galaxy, at any time. The Vexery representative sputtered with outrage. You cannot simply build a secret military and expect the Concord to accept it? Christina allowed herself a small smile. For 40 years, the Concord treated humanity as a minor species. You refused our requests for protection treaties? You watched while the Vexery expanded toward our space. You made it very clear that we were on our own. She paused and looked around the chamber. So we made sure we could protect ourselves. Now here we are. Arguments erupted across the chamber. Some species expressed outrage at humanity's deception. Others expressed fear about what this new power meant for the balance of the galaxy. A few whispered admiration for how effectively the humans had hidden their true capabilities. The Alderan ambassador, tall being with purple skin and large dark eyes, stood up to speak. This is unprecedented. No species has ever hidden such military strength from the Concord. How can we trust humanity after such deception? Christina turned to face the Alderan directly. You can trust us because we have never used our power aggressively. We built our fleet for defense, not conquest. The only time we have used it was to protect our own people from attack. We have no interest in taking over other worlds or enslaving other species. We simply want to live in peace, with the ability to protect ourselves and our colonies. But such power is dangerous, the Alderan insisted. What if humanity decides to use it for other purposes in the future? That is a fair question, Christina admitted. And I have a proposal that might address your concerns. She activated a display that showed a new document. 8. One that Earth's diplomats and legal experts had been working on for weeks. We propose a mutual defense amendment to the Concord Charter. Under this amendment, an attack on any member species would be considered an attack on all members. Every civilization in the Concord would be protected by the combined military strength of every other civilization. Murmurs spread through the chamber as representatives discussed the proposal with their colleagues. The idea was radical, The Galactic Concord had always been a loose association with each species responsible for its own defense. A true mutual defense treaty would transform it into something much stronger. The Concord Speaker, an ancient being of the Theshan race, called for order. Ambassador Blake, this is a significant change. Why should the Concord agree to such an arrangement? Because the old way does not work, Christina replied. Species like the Vexery have been able to conquer and enslave because no one was willing to stop them. The Concord watched and did nothing while civilizations died. We are offering a better alternative. With this treaty, no species would ever have to face such a threat alone. The debates continued for 3 days. Some species were enthusiastic about the proposal. Others were suspicious of humanity's motives. The Vexery representatives tried to block the discussion entirely, but they found themselves increasingly isolated as other civilizations considered the benefits of true collective security. In the end, the vote was not even close. The Mutual Defense Amendment passed with overwhelming support. The Galactic Concord transformed from a loose gathering of self-interested species into a genuine alliance with real commitments. And at the center of this new arrangement stood humanity. It's no longer ignored or forgotten. On Veridon 7, the rebuilding had already begun. Ships from Earth brought construction equipment, medical supplies, and teams of engineers to help repair the damage. New defensive systems were being installed in orbit, ensuring that no hostile fleet would ever again threaten the colony. Governor Linda Marsh stood on the observation deck of her office. Watching the activity in the sky above, Captain Samuel Drake had come down from the Unity to personally oversee some of the relief efforts, and he stood beside her now. It is strange, Linda said quietly. For 43 years we felt so alone out here. We told ourselves that Earth had forgotten us, that we did not matter to anyone. Samuel shook his head. Every colony matters to Earth. Every human life matters. That was the principle we built our entire military around. We might not always arrive in time, but we will always try. And anyone who threatens our people will learn what humanity is capable of. Linda looked at the Unity hanging in orbit, a constant reminder of Earth's presence and protection. What happens now? Now we build a future where this never happens again. A galaxy where human colonies do not have to be afraid, where children can grow up knowing that they will never be abandoned. Samuel paused and smiled. It will not be easy. There will be challenges and setbacks. But we have taken the first step. The rest of the galaxy knows that humanity is here to stay and that we protect our own. Below them, in the central square of the colony's main city, children were playing. Their laughter drifted up on the warm afternoon breeze. These children had faced death and destruction just weeks ago. Now they played without fear, knowing that somewhere above them, ships from Earth watched over them. Linda felt tears forming in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of hope rather than despair. She thought about all the human colonies scattered across the galaxy. All the millions of people who had once felt alone and forgotten. They did not have to feel that way anymore. Earth had come for them. Earth would always come for them. Far above the planet, the Unity held its position in orbit. Its sensors scanned the surrounding space constantly, watching for any threat. Aboard the ship, the crew went about their duties with quiet pride. Knowing that they were part of something larger than themselves, the stars stretched out in every direction, vast and endless. Somewhere among them, other human colonies continued their daily lives. Other children played and laughed and dreamed of the future, and all of them, whether they knew it or not, were protected by the might of Earth. They had believed no one would come. They had been wonderfully, gloriously wrong. The new era of humanity had begun.